Hello and welcome to round one of the UK National League Championships. This is the opening set of tournaments for the 2022-23 tournament season here in the UK. For those of you who know how League works, obviously we've got our 7-game format, each game with a different set of criteria in place. For those who've not encountered League before, please check out our video that explains exactly how the rules and setup works. So you've got a good comprehension of how these matches are going to function and how the scoring and everything else works for the teams. So here we go, straight into game one, match one of this new season here in the UK. And our opening tournament, as always, is between the two top-ranked teams currently in the UK, that being IDK and the Boss. Here we go. So game one. Game one is a 3v3 freestyle. So players are free to operate in any way they like in terms of their stat choices. See where they go. First shot's fired there from IDK. Nice cross court movement from the Boss, dodging under that first opening barrage. Obviously, match stats wise, IDK tend to dominate against the Boss, even though there's only one rank between them within the National League at this point. Huge amount of fire there being directed from the Boss towards Paris on that front right corner there for IDK, and he's just dodging his way around all of it. Shifting back and forward on position to get himself in front or behind of the crossover point, and thereby evading quite a lot of the fire. Nice cross movement pitch as well from all the IDK members. Shifting around, just dropping a shield in there just to break that flow of fire. Although get himself clipped up in that front corner as he did so. A couple of points now on the board for the Boss, but IDK already starting to pull ahead. And for anyone who's watched IDK's matches in the past, the last sort of 10-15 seconds of the match is when they really tend to push on the gas. So even if you're holding them to an even score up to that point, so at the last 10-15 seconds they tend to motor away from their opponents. Good across the board scoring there from IDK. As ever, looks like Milo as their highest scoring player. Plenty of gunfire coming out there from the Boss, just not able to hit the targets, unfortunately. So, again, nice even spread there on the abilities. Lots of shot speed from IDK. Very, very little shot speed though from the Boss, which is unusual. I mean, fighting against IDK, you need that speed. They're just too good. Their movements, their evasion, everything else. To be able to drop yourself down to speed 1 like that, which the Boss did with 2 of their team. Very, very dangerous choice to go with. So, teams are on their 100-second recovery between game 1 and game 2. Automatically cycled straight back in. If you're not ready when the 100-second ends, tough. You had plenty of time, and obviously that tight time frame is both part of the fitness aspect that comes in as you move through these games, but also the pressure that comes under it. So getting ready for game 2. Game 2 is scale 1. That means they cannot spend any points in the scale stat. Their points must be split between speed, charge rate and shields. Invariably here we just see these pushed into speed and charge rate in different formats, because with that much charge rate knocking around, it's almost pointless to have shields because they just get wiped out so quickly. So let's see what the teams have gone for. So it's going to see an awful lot of very fast small shots flying across the pitch here. Yep, so no shields from either side. 4-1-4 standard from the IDK players. A little bit of variation there between 4-1-4 and 5-1-3 from the Boss. So that little bit of extra speed helps, but obviously the smaller projectiles mean you can be so much more accurate. It also means if you look at IDK specifically here, Boss slightly less so, but definitely with IDK, they're not really moving off their position points here. They're able just to go through body motion rocks and shifts to evade an awful lot of this incoming fire. The benefit of having these smaller projectiles coming at you really does mean that you can just shift and move your body rather than necessarily having to cover a huge amount of distance in order to stay out of their way. IDK starting to pull ahead here. These matches, because of the smaller shot sizes, tend to be lower scoring than some of the other rounds. Although IDK certainly starting to add the points up onto the board here. You can tell they're feeling very confident. They're all coming forward onto the front line now. Obviously, in this smaller projectile game, that front line position is more risky, more dangerous. It's more risky in most, but specifically here, because those smaller projectiles and distance really give you the capacity to evade and dodge. Moving up onto the centre line is something you'd only do if you were really low on points, or as they were there, with a comfortable lead, and deciding you were just going to push it for the last few because, well, you can. So what we're seeing here, as you see there from player 6 being the highest on movement, much lower movement level around the court generally than we saw in the previous match, and that's because they're able, with these smaller projectiles, to take a more stationary point and just dodge and evade around from that point through the body movement, rather than necessarily having to cover a lot of the court, because the smaller projectiles don't force that same amount of movement. Okay, moving into game 3. Game 3 is a 2v2 freestyle. So again, I mean, back to as they were in game 1, they've got no restriction on how they spend the points, but now it's only 2v2. Now, the number of players on the pitch significantly alters how you play. Obviously, if you've got 3 players on each side and 1 player gets taken out, you've still got 2 opponents, you've still got quite a lot going on, and you can't really afford to ignore anyone. When you've got 2 on each side, though, the moment 1 player is taken out, now all of a sudden it becomes a 2v1, and you're able to both focus fire on the 1 remaining player, who's basically got to try and desperately stay alive until their teammate's back in play. And obviously that 3-second knockout seems an awful lot longer than that when you're the only one being fired at. If you can get the rhythm going properly from an attacking team here, you can take 1 player out, shift to the other, you've got 3 seconds to put them down, which you can do if you've got the crossfire going right, then immediately shift back to player 1, then back to player 2, and so on. And you can almost, if you get that bounce going right, keep an opposing team locked out. So let's see how they go. Also interesting to see what stat mixes they've gone for here, because I still don't think there's a real idea of a meta of an ideal stat set. Okay, so neither team's going with shields, both going with relatively low charge, fast shots. Again, slightly slower speeds from the boss there, which I don't think are going to do many favours. IDK is just so mobile in these games that you really need shot speeds of 4 or 5. Plus, obviously, to be accurate in the first place, if you're going to have a good chance of landing hits. So IDK already starting to move ahead here. You can see basically you've got 2-on-1 scenarios happening on a regular basis here. IDK players focus firing the boss to take them down, open up the opportunity then to bring pressure onto the second player. One of the real big important things here is communication between the teams. You really need to be talking to your teammate, because the moment they're taken out of play, you've got to know, because all of a sudden all the firepower is coming straight at you, and you need that warning. So during that 3 seconds that they're out of play, you can do everything possible to not get taken out yourself, so they're not walking straight back into a hail of energy blasts as well. So lots of evasion, lots of dodging whilst your teammate's out. 8 points to 4. Again, as predicted, IDK moving ahead nicely there. Again, they really didn't get Boss not really managed to score any points to the second half of the match. By that point, IDK had pretty much got it in the bag. Across the board there, IDK on the MVP stats. Here we go, looking at that, 31 to 42% accuracies from IDKs, and a 20 and 22% there from the boss. So really just need to find ways to up that, and that real sort of paired focus fire, everyone on a single target is really the only way you're going to manage it. So moving now into 100-second recovery again, and we're looking at for round 4. So round 4, again we're back to 3v3. But this time this is a shields game. So the player stats, obviously they have four stats, so speed, scale, charge rate and shields. They get 1 point in each free. However, for this, the total number of points in their shield stat must equal 8 or greater across the 3 members of the team. So that could be one person's taken 5, one's got 2, and one's got just their free 1 point they're getting there anyway. That would be enough for 8, or they can split it however they like across the team. They can have a lot more than 8 points in shields if they want to, but they must have a minimum of 8. So this round is about looking at your shielding tactics, where you put them, how you position them when you use them during the match, how you counter shield. So how do you bring in a shield versus shield situation to create solid walls and negate opposing shields? High charge rates as well to see how rapidly you can get rid of opposing team shields. So it's all about the shield, counter shielding, defensive play. So let's see how we go. So we've got 5-2-1 split on shields from both teams. One high charge rate player on both teams as well. So fairly evenly matched in the stat choices. IDK with the first points on the board there. Really nice timing and positioning on that front shield. Possibly a little bit flat, but the boss not taking advantage of that at all. If you have a flat shield, you can go to the opposing side of the court near the centre line and cross shot to shoot behind it. Okay, 1 point apiece. Definitely with bosses at the halfway mark. Definitely bosses strongest showing to date during this matchup. Nice. Okay, so IDK just edging that 1 point ahead now. 30 seconds left to play. Boss pulling it back again. Definitely their strongest round here. Now, it's not to say that IDK aren't good on the shield work. They are. Historically, though, as a team, Boss have relied very heavily on shield work. They've only recently shifted to a more firepower-oriented set of tactics. They've got a really good set of track record and on their shield work to fall back on here. Boss now edging ahead, just under the 10-second mark, but this is where IDK really get dangerous. That last few seconds is always where they put pile on the pressure and the speed. But they're going to overtime. Excellent play from the Boss there. So here we are in overtime. That means once that clock runs out, it's the first knockout on any player that takes the match. You don't get any shields back, you don't get any life markers back. It's just up, ready, and go as you are. And who's going to score that point? It's getting tense now. Can the Boss do it? Can the Boss take a game from IDK? And nope, so close, but IDK take that game. So that's IDK continuing their clean sheet here. That was close. Boss, said before, their regular training partners, and one of the teams that probably knows IDK's moves, style, technique better than anyone else. We'll drop off there on some of the IDK accuracy levels as well. So interesting to see that the Boss are able to push them quite that far. Means that Boss starting to take games off IDK. It's probably not as far away as it has previously looked, which is good to see. Not trying to let IDK to lose games, but having teams that are at a level that can be pushing IDK is really good for the UK leagues. And the more teams we have at this top end who can really push and challenge against a team like IDK, take games off them, and in time start to win against them. Overall, the better it actually is for the leagues. It means the greater the ability level of all the teams is becoming, rather than just having a single standout team. So moving on now to the 1v1 round. So these rounds tend to focus on high speed, high shot size, but low charge rate. That tends to be the preferred way of working on them. I've seen a few game rounds this recently where people have gone for shields in the mix, which is really sort of mix the meta up a bit. Because if your opponent's got a very low charge rate, those shields can be a nightmare for them to get through. You've just got to, whatever you've got is still going to be enough to obviously land a hit on them while you've got that shield advantage in place. So it'll be interesting to see where people have gone. So yeah, so high speed, and that mix of scale and charge rate. So still able to put a reasonable number of shots out, but it's basically about speed. So both playing the long game right on the back wall. Gives you the maximum amount of time, obviously, to evade, see the shot coming in. Fortunately, also gives your opponent exactly the same situation. Makes a lot of it really about Can you send out flurries of shots to create a trap to effectively try to run your opponent into a shot? Can you really kind of second guess and predict where they are? There's definitely an argument for building up charge, coming up towards the middle of your zone, or possibly even the centre line of the pitch, to unleash a whole flurry of shots when you've got that capacity to drop that big chunk of firepower out there and then pull back. Nice shot out there from IDK, taking the first point in the match. These matches tend to be very low point scoring because of the amount of ground you got in for evasion. At this point, 10 seconds left on the clock, 2-point difference. This is an IDK game, perfect time to drop a shield. Just soaks up a few more shots from your opponents, what helps winds that clock down. And if you only got 1 point in shield, dropping it in those last few seconds, just to make sure there's no chance of a comeback, is very good tactical play. So it's a 2-0 win there for IDK in the 1v1. So getting now ready to head into our 6th game of this match. So game 6 is the 20-point game. So this one's a little bit more, I suppose, complex to get your head around. Each player has 6 bonus points to spend on their stats, so a total of 18 bonus points across a team. You start with 4 points per player, so you start with level 1 speed, level 1 scale, level 1 charge, level 1 shields. So each player has 4 points effectively pre-spent. So again, across a team of 3, that means you have 12 points pre-spent. So your total point spend, both pre-spent and bonus points, cannot be greater than 20 on this round across the whole team. Practicality, that means of your 18 bonus points, you're allowed to spend 8 of them. Now, it's up to you where you spend them on your team. So you could completely boost one player, allow them to play totally as normal. You could split them across your team. You can do all sorts of things with them. This leads you then to all tactics based around decoys. Is there a player who you're going to actively make it look like they've got high stats and that they're the lead player, so they're the one that's going to get the opponent team's focus on, and actually they're a low stat player. Now, it's interesting to see what IDK are doing here. Normally, you'd expect at this point to see no shots going out because you're not really wanting to tell the other team who's chosen what. And obviously, by firing, they can see your shot size, your speed. They've got at least an idea of charge rate in terms of how many shots you're putting out. So it's unusual for IDK to do that. Let's see how they go and where the points have been spent. Okay, so the boss 2, 4, 6 have only spent 8 points. Yes, that's correct. So they've got 1 player full out and 1 with shields for a bit of protection. And for which one flip around again so we can see IDK's split. Obviously got some shield work going on there as well on that front corner. Yeah, very similar there. Single player with shields. And a single player fully boosted. So you've got 1 decoy player basically in the mix, who's there just to grab attention, drop shots out here and there. They're not really that much of a threat, but obviously ignore them at your peril because they're still accurate, they're still capable. They can still drop those level 1 shields out, as was just done there. So IDK edging ahead by a single point here at the moment. Now, historically, shields round and this 20-point round have probably been IDK's weakest. I know they've also lost several games in the league on the 1v1s. Obviously, they're basically much lower point scoring here, but now starting to move ahead in those last few seconds against the boss. It's another one that we see as a hallmark of the IDK tactics, that you'll hold. They can, even a good team can seem to be holding relatively level against them through to about the last sort of 10 to 15 seconds of the match, and then the pace starts to pick up, and that last 5 seconds it goes all out, and you can suddenly see what looked like a single point difference between teams suddenly jump to 4 or 5 points quite happily in those last few seconds. So that last moment sprint is definitely a hallmark of their play style. Be interesting to see going forward if the teams can start to find a way to limit that, or maybe even work that against them. And game 7. So game 7, we are back to our freestyle. So all your points, no restrictions, play whatever tactics, whatever style you like to try and take the 7th game in the match. Obviously, you will pick up a point towards your team score for every game you win during the match, and a bonus point for winning the majority of games in the match. So currently it is 6 games to nothing in favour of IDK. So they've currently got 6 points plus the bonus, so 7 points in total. Let's see if the boss can pull a single point back on this match towards their team total for this off this last game. Obviously going 7 games to nothing down is never ever going to help your team score. So whatever you can pull back, even if it's just the last game, it's still worth doing it. As every point helps towards the team score, the team overall score. So it looks like we're looking at a firepower game again. But, let's see how it plays out. Looks like Paris is going shields there. Yep, just a single point distractor, just to draw some firing. Very good at that. He'll come up onto the front line, draw lots of attention onto himself so the shots move towards him. Very, very good on his evasion on that front line position. Takes all the pressure off the back too. Even just dropping a low rank shield like that. He'll quite often play heavy shields, so him with his arm down towards the front line is not an unusual position for you to see him in towards the start of the match. And it draws a lot of attention onto him because obviously you don't want him to drop those heavy shields on the front line. And he's performed his job perfectly. Drawing the shot fire onto himself, drawing the pressure off his teammates, help the team get that initial momentum going. And if you can keep the pressure on once you've got that momentum, it's really hard for the opposition to come back. We're seeing here 5-0 down. So the moment you start getting those players out, and you can then concentrate fire, especially when you're on a firepower build like IDK are for this one, it makes it really, really tough for the other team to get back in the game. They just can't get the momentum going again, and you're constantly 2-on-1, 3-on-1 firing, so catching and crossfire after crossfire, meaning you can just keep them locked out of play. So I mean, that's not taking anything away from the evasion work that's been done by the IDK players to stop the boss getting those points in. Some really nice play, but that opening distraction move from Paris performed perfectly and really drew in that attention from the boss. There we go, 7 games to nothing. Match 1 win for IDK versus the boss. Obviously, follow on this series to see the rest of the matches in the League 1 Masters pool.